Shalom. First and foremost, I'd like to give all praise to Yahweh, Ba'ashem, Yahushai, Ba'ashem, Rakal Kadash, double honors to the elders and apostles of Great Millstone, who are teaching this truth and sincerity. The Shadat Yak in the four quarters of the earth. Barakatha Yahweh, Barakatha Yahweh Shai, Ba'ashem, Rakal Kadash, Barakatha. So, yesterday, if you hadn't caught the longer length videos on Confusion Face Reading 2 channel, I actually read the Syrian Arab News report, which would have actually gone live on the Syria TV channels. And so Esau's trying to shut up this information that, and the fucking white helmets, they already have this video ready to go, and that this video is going to be faked to provocate that Assad's chemical weapons against his own people. Not long after the United States was caught, also, I believe in retaliatory method as well, because the United States was also caught using white phosphorus bombs against the people of Syria, and everybody can see that the one that's using chemical weapons is the United States and its allies. These so-called Syrian rebels, which they're not from Syria, they're from other countries. The whole idea of ISIS was the combination, the culmination of all the terror groups molded into one. They just called it ISIS. They needed a new name, to make it seem like the United States was fighting the war of terrorists. So they said that they were fighting the war on ISIS, and they went and bombed Syrian infrastructure just so they could give ISIS a stronghold to continue their war of terror. Because that's what it is a war of terror. And pretty much Esau's just digging and digging that further rabbit hole. Roger Waters of Pink Floyd recently put out a video that white helmets is a rabbit hole that Esau's digging that he can't get out of. That's why it's my belief that Roger Waters is a Confusion to Face Israelite. But he has his reward because, of course, he picked fame. And, when you get a music contract and all that, you make a deal with the devil, Esau, the so-called white man. So, well, all this is leading up to the final war. But we know that the mark of the beast, the RFID implant, has to be made mandatory. But, just take a good look at what's happening with the mandatory, what you call the, man, I said it many times already, but Real ID Act. Pretty much all the states are now compliant with the Real ID Act, and that's just a teaser to the RFID implant in the right hand or forehead. And we already know that, and I've seen it, the medical devices that are being put into people, Elon Musk being in charge of most of the brain stems and brain implants, which are the medical devices, so that way they can upload your brain to the computer. They can have a computer tracking chip and also control your mind, because they're using it on soldiers. You could see people controlling their iPad in what they call Operation Iraqi Freedom, which we know that it brought the destruction of Iraq. But, man, somebody else was controlling another Edomite who had that brain implant, using his little iPad and all that, and he was like, punch the guy, and he's pushing it on there, because they have combat robot soldiers using this brain implant. The technology is already here. It's on the soldiers. You can best believe your law enforcement, they already have that. Shit, they already have an RFID to tell how many bullets they've used. So Esau's tracking everybody's move. And of course, law enforcement, all forms of government, are the first ones to get it. You'd think that it was the flip side of it. And of course, we know that, what's happening to our northern kingdom, that they're getting tracking chips. These FEMA camps, the Walmart detention centers. Everybody remembers Jade Helm. That's a topic there. But what was Jade Helm? It was the preparation drills for martial law. And what happened during the martial law drills? Those Walmart centers were very conveniently closed and turned into FEMA centers. Now you're seeing that rolled out. Everything that Jade Helm was a practice for, it got rolled out under Donald J. Trump and his crackdown on illegals. He says that we're illegal, although Esau's occupation of this area is illegal. They didn't obtain this go ahead and come on over here, Esau was never invited here. He was never wanted here, but he came here with trickery. Because the devil, he pretty much is Esau, the so-called white man. He comes in the form of Esau. So, anyhow, what's happening, though, is that Esau's being exposed. That's how I began the lessons this week. I wanted to go out there on the streets and teach, but I'm still having a problem with the battery. So, yeah, man, probably, at least it's under warranty, though. The car battery still is having problems. So, it's better to be safe. But nonetheless, though, Lord willing, I'd get out there, and declare this on the streets. But for right now, at least I could do some live streams here. I finally got this equipment working. So, Lord willing, I'll be out there very soon. So, I'm going to read and continue in Jeremiah's prophecy against Babylon the Great, which at this time, he was talking about the current Babylon system, because at the time the current Babylon system was in place, but he was talking about the future Babylon, which is why John reiterated Mystery Babylon the Great, the mother of harlots. So, continuing on in Jeremiah chapter 51, verse 1. Thus saith the Lord Yahweh, Behold, I will raise up against Babylon, against those who dwell in Labkamat, a destroying wind. And what's that destroying wind? By way of them thermonuclear missiles. And I will send winnowers to Babylon, who shall winnow her and empty her land. For in the day of doom they shall be against her all around. So, all these allies that turn against Babylon the Great, America. Against her let the archer bend his bow. And what's a current archer? That's them things that deliver those the delivery vehicles, pretty much for the thermonuclear missiles, and lift himself up against her in his armor. Do not spare her, young men. Utterly destroy all her army. So they're going to wipe out the entire militia. Thus the slain shall fall in the land of the Chaldeans. Pretty much over here. The slain of the Lord shall be many, and those thrust through in her streets. For Israel is not forsaken, nor Judah. So again, we just got to be patient. We got to hang on. Brothers, we got to hang on, because Esau's about to be destroyed. We're crying all the time about when is Esau going to be held accountable for everything he does. We see him getting away with shit. We see him find himself not guilty. Rodney King was just one of many things, We know that they beat that brother to death. And what did they do? They turned the whole thing around and made it look like he was attacking the police. When you can see on camera that the police were fucking attacking him. But they made him look like he was the one attacking, and Esau was found not guilty. Never held accountable. Nothing. By his God, the Lord of hosts, through their land was filled with sin against the Holy One of Israel. Yeah, putting up that image of Caesar Borgia and Christianity, and our brothers being deceived by that. But yet we're coming out now, and we're proclaiming this. Verse 6. For the midst of Babylon, every one save his life. Do not be cut off in her iniquity. In other words, do not be caught up in these religions, that ex-ministries and all that other bullshit, man. TD snakes. Man, don't be caught up in that bullshit. For this is the time of the Lord's vengeance. He shall recompense her. Babylon was a golden cup in the Lord's hand that made all the earth drink. So all the nations were drunk with her philosophies. Syria went along with it. Christianity's big time in Syria and the region. Look at the places that are being destroyed right now. This false flag's about to come out against Syria, because they were partakers in Babylon the Great. Babylon the Great has affected the entire earth. Read Psalms 83. Every nation were partakers in it. Our brother Syria, because the Syrian is our brother, all were partaken in this deception. Christianity, Caesar Borgia, all were partakers in it. Although they'll be the first to tell you that, the image of the Lord is not like what you see in the churches. Yeah, but they're still promoting the church, the Roman Catholic Church. It's in every country, in which we know Christianity is a branch off of that. The nations drank her wine, therefore the nations are deranged. Yeah, because this is lunacy. Christianity is lunacy. Babylon has suddenly fallen and been destroyed. Woe for her. Take balm for her pain. Perhaps she may be healed. We would have healed Babylon, but she is not heeded. Forsake her and let us go, everyone into his own country. And that's what's happening now. People are getting out of Babylon the Great. A lot of people were doing it, and this began the fall of Christianity. A lot of people were doing it in the re-election of Barack Hussein Obama. You know, and there were so many videos out there. The Edomites have cleaned it up, but man, there were so many videos out there of Obama being the Antichrist, and that he would usher in the World War III. The mark of the beast was in the Obamacare Act. So even I was in the midst of catching the videos just right before I got to Great Millstone of Obama being the Antichrist, you know, Luke 10:18, I beheld Satan as Barack Obama. You know, I caught all that stuff. But what was happening is there was a decline in Christianity. And within Christianity, you know, and this is what helped me to leave, is like, well, why aren't they teaching that Obama is the Antichrist? When you got so many of these Christians out here telling people that Obama is the Antichrist. Well, you know as well as I do that anti-Mashiach applies to many, for there are many anti-Mashiachs. But nonetheless, though, what's happened, though, is that it began the decline of Christianity. People were forsaking Christianity and were starting to read the Bible for their own. That's how I came to this. And then, you know, as I'm seeing Zionism, you know, and I'm like, these aren't the people of the Most High. No, man, you know, our people are still in slavery till this day. And pretty much you call them black people. I mean, I said it like that, and then I found the evidence. I found GMS Toronto. Came into this truth, started watching them videos. And I started, you know, because I was doing what I still do, you know, putting together videos talking about end-time events, because, man, I left that church. I left Christianity because they were not teaching the truth, you know. I was watching others like Paul Bagley and True News and some other stuff, but and I was falling out of Christianity. I left it. And I'm like, well, they ain't teaching anything. That they just want to pass the collection plate, but they're not teaching things. They're not even sounding the alarm, and you're supposed to sound the alarm, be a watchman. Christianity don't have watchmen. The people of Great Millstone do. And so I eventually come to the conclusion that, hey, wait a minute, they're answering everything. They're answering questions that I had for the so-called church, which they wouldn't even touch on these subjects, but they were answering everything. Well, what, you know, I would ask the question, well, what's this one stick that is in Ezekiel? You know, take, you know, the tribe of Ephraim and the tribe of Judah and put them together in one stick. What's that talking about? Great Millstone, which you now know, the apostles and elders of Great Millstone are the true leaders of Israel today. And I would figure out later that despite what I look like, that I was an Israelite, and that this devil comes in the form of Esau. You know, leading up to getting away, forbidding, you know, forsake. And I knew that America was Babylon the Great, because no other nation on earth has had the influence, the flexibility to, and I've seen the fucking gay marriages and all this other shit. And I've seen the whole world getting involved in this shit during the re-election of Barack Hussein Obama. And I've seen that, you know, all the nations were falling after Babylon. So I knew America was Babylon the Great. Couldn't be the Vatican City. We would have healed Babylon, but she is not healed. Forsake her and let us go, everyone into his own country. And I said this, I was a man without country. I did not approve of what America was doing to Syria, Libya, or anything when I seen the real truth behind all these wars. I said, I'm not an American. I do not approve of this. I do not belong here. So I knew that I had to be of another nationality. And I eventually would come to my nationality, and which led me to last year going out in the streets and teaching. For her judgment reaches to heaven and is lifted up to the skies. The Lord have received our righteousness, so lifted up to the skies. What's that talking about? When we got a hold of the chariots, this is the final day that we're waiting for. The Lord has received our righteousness. Come, let us declare in Zion the work of the Lord Yahweh our God. Make the arrows bright, gather the shields. The Lord hath raised up the spirit of the kings of the Medes, which is talking about the Russians. For his plan is against Babylon to destroy it, because it is the vengeance of the Lord. The vengeance for his temple. Who is the temple? That's us. We're that third temple. We are New Jerusalem. And we'll be coming down with Yahweh Shai to be the kings of the earth. We just got to endure just a little bit longer. Hey, Shalom, Ak. Set up the standard on the walls of Babylon. Make the guard strong. Set up the watchmen, which is what's been happening. You know, the elders and apostles of the great millstone and the great millstone camps that are being set up. Prepare the ambushes, for the Lord hath done. For the Lord has both devised and done what he spoke against the inhabitants of Babylon. O you who dwell by many waters. Well, what's that nation of rushing waters? Isaiah goes into this too. That nation of rushing waters is talking about America. Abundant in treasures. Yeah, you got all your treasures by thievery. Your end has come, the measure of your covetousness. The Lord of hosts has sworn by himself. Surely I will fill you with men, as with locusts, and they shall lift up a shout against you. That's what we're doing, man. We're shouting against Esau, the so-called white man. We're calling out that devil out there on the streets. And it's getting bigger and bigger. Every time they want to pull a false flag off, it's being exposed. Because everybody now knows that America is not G.I. Joe, the real American hero. They're the terrorists. You know, Bashar al-Assad even said this, and I know this does get their goat. It's like you are in no shape to speak about others' policies when you have a history of policies that come against the people. He has made the earth by his power. He has established the world by his wisdom and stretched out the heaven by his understanding. When he utters his voice, there is a multitude of waters in the heavens. He causes the vapors to ascend from the ends of the earth. He makes lightnings for his rain. He brings the wind out of his treasures. Everyone is dull-hearted without knowledge. Every metalsmith is put to shame by the carved image. For his molded image is falsehood, and there is no breath in them. Again, you know, we can just talk about the Caesar Borgia images. You know, this Christianity thing is being confounded big time. And people going back to atheism and getting out of them churches. And are also finding the prophets on the streets, which is how I came. I got out of the Christian church and I found the prophets on the streets by way of the internet, the unicorn, and eventually got to a camp. And, you know, and prophesying right here in Reading. They are futile, a work of errors. In the time of their punishment, they shall perish. The portion of Jacob is not like them, for he is the maker of all things, and Israel is the tribe of his inheritance. The Lord of hosts is his name. So again, you know, pretty much, and there's just so much meat in this. I just wanted at least to cover the first half of this, but, you know, just, you are my battle axe and weapons of war, for with you I will break the nation in pieces. With you I will destroy kingdoms. So, you know, we're going to come back and we're going to destroy this devil once and for all. So all we got to do is hang on and just watch this rabbit hole that Esau's crawling down. Watch the rabbit hole, because he's already been caught. He's the thief that has been caught. And everybody knows that the reason why they shut down the Syria TV channels is because they had the evidence. They had actual video footage showing the white helmets staging this event. And pretty much, though, this place is about to be destroyed. I mean, we're seeing this right before our very eyes, but they're going to roll out the mark of the beast, the microchip, and We could see that happening with the Real ID compliance. That all 50 states now have to be in compliance with the Real ID. So the next thing is that chip, and it's a part of the Obamacare Act, which is the law of the land, which is H.R. 3960 and H.R. 4872, where it requires everyone to have that implant, pretty much a tracking device, and pretty much that is the mark of the beast. And we can see, though, that it is going to become mandatory and no longer. I just mentioned how law enforcement has it, soldiers have it. It's a requirement. And what's kind of funny is that you start talking about some of the others that came out of Christianity. Even Jason A. channel, they had no choice but to film Great Millstone in Toronto. When we was talking to another brother that was about to enlist, they were showing it at the end of the video because, Jason A. takes a lot of videos just like what I was doing. I was doing the same thing, paying it forward, combining all the videos. I still do that. I can't say, oh, well, those are my videos. No, these are from other brothers that put it together. But at the very end of a Jason A. video, he's showing Great Millstone in Toronto. And this was a few years ago, about how we were teaching that America is Babylon the Great. And we asked this brother, who happened to be tribe of Issachar, we asked him, so you're enlisting? You know that America is Babylon the Great. You're going to get that chip? And he was like, oh yeah. Our people are blinded by Esau, man. But yeah, we're telling them that that America is Babylon the Great and that they're going to be destroyed, But Jason A. had no choice but to show that. You see, what's happening, though, is that a lot of our people were in Christianity at one time, but are now stepped out because there's no answers there. They just read the same scriptures over and over again. And yet, there's nothing really edifying about that. And yet, it's so much a doctrine of devils because anybody who actually sat down to read the Bible would see that, wait a minute, there's a lot of things that the Most High hates. He's not all love. If he was all love, then why would he cast Babylon the Great into the lake of fire? It's not all love. And when you figure out who Babylon the Great is, and we're in the midst of Babylon the Great, then that just means that we need to come out of Babylon the Great. Spiritually, come out from her philosophies, which Christianity is one of the big ones, but so is Islam and all the other things. All these things can be found in Babylon the Great. Be not partakers. Come back to your heritage, which is what we're doing. So I hope this has been edifying. Like everything else, man, I just pretty much going to keep watching these events take place, but I expect them to roll out this video very soon, and that's why the blackout of Syria News in English, which Syria News in English was canceled a few years ago because I knew that they were going to get eventually take down the Syria TV channel. Sure enough, that happened not long after Alex Jones. So with the information being taken away, the famine of the word is coming also where we won't be on. So now's the time to get it. Save all these things to a hard drive. That's what I do. If you have to spend a little extra money for hard drives, get them, man. Save these lessons. We need these lessons. But also, most of all, make sure that it resonates in our hearts so that way we have it. Because you know that here in California, you have to register the Bible as a lethal weapon. Yeah, man. It is a lethal weapon. It cuts. And Esau's being cut big time by it. So I hope this has been edifying. Bracha the Yahweh, Bracha the Yahweh Shai, Ba'ashem Rakal Kadash, Bracha. And here's another Edomite, the Kyle Kalinsky show. I found this yesterday, but pretty much he goes into this too, about how Alex Jones was taken down not long after that. Now government channels, the Syrian government channels have been taken down. Well, not only am I going to play you that, but I'm going to show you what's actually going on, because there are back doors to get to the Syria TV channels, at least some of them, to show you what's actually going on in Syria. I don't know how many of you understand Aramaic or Arabic, but nonetheless, though, it'll just show you, man, again, the Syria News in English was canceled few years back. But Paula Abraham, one of the main guys from Syria News in English, you can catch him on CGTN and some of the other ones, and he reports from Damascus. But pretty much, though, this is they're about to roll this thing out. I can't reiterate that enough, and so we know that Idlib is a hot spot, and I believe that that's part of Armageddon war, man. This war is going to be for a while. This ain't just something that's just going to, poof, happens overnight. No, it's going to happen over a period of time, because we know that the mark of the beast has to be mandatory. And, of course, we also know that censorship, which brings in the famine of the word, that has to come into play also, as well as Jacob's trouble. So we're just seconds away from all these things. So this first part will be about Syria, and then we'll just go on to other things. And I'll even play you an interview with Bashar al-Assad that was said just right before the Idlib offensive got started.
This is an important story that unfortunately you're not going to see anywhere in Western media, and it's heartbreaking. But YouTube decided to delete every single pro-Syrian channel at the same time this week. Now, why did they do it? Well, it happened to coincide with the battle for Idlib. So, right now, that is a jihadist stronghold. It's one of the few remaining rebel strongholds in Syria. And the government decided, we're going to take it back. We're going to make a push to take it back. Okay, that seems like a good idea. Well, apparently YouTube decided we can't have these Syrian channels talking about that, because in the eyes of, billionaire CEO oligarchs, that's propaganda in favor of the Syrian government and the butcher Assad. So we have to get rid of that. And now the only narrative you hear is, Assad is evil and wrong and terrible and the bad guy, and he's trying to defeat wholesome rebels who are trying to free Syria. So now there's only one narrative, only one perspective, and I warned you from the beginning that what we're going to see is on these social media outlets, since we all said, oh yeah, censorship, great, wonderful, we're for that. Now what you did is you opened up the door, and you're going to have people like Jack on Twitter, you're going to have, Facebook, you're going to have YouTube, all these outlets. We know what they've done in other countries, so they're probably going to start doing that here. What they did in other countries was, they met with Israel, for example. Israel said, hey, these Palestinian rights groups, we don't like them. We want you to ban access to them in our country. And then Facebook complies. And you go down the list. Look at Saudi Arabia, China. Oh, we don't like this thing. We don't like that thing. Censor whatever we want you to censor. Well, now, here it comes to the U.S. We don't agree with the Syrian government. We've wanted regime change for a while. So what we're going to do is not allow them to put out their propaganda. And even though they're fighting Al-Qaeda, and that should probably be reported on right now because they're trying to take back Idlib, sorry, we're not even going to allow that narrative to get out there, and now we're going to ban those channels. So the channels belonging to the Syrian presidency, the country's Ministry of Defense, and the Sanaa News all showed a message saying, we've been taken down, sorry it's not working, things of that nature. And then you had General Joseph Dunford warned that the Pentagon is preparing and keeping Donald Trump informed about potential military options for retaliation if chemical weapons are used in Syria. And what's interesting is that beforehand, Syria warned, hey, we think they're staging a chemical attack. We're not doing it. We think that Al-Qaeda is staging a chemical attack. And then that's the attempt for Al-Qaeda to lure in the West in order to fight on their side. So, and we already know that we've been de facto aligned with jihadist groups in Syria. That's a known fact. Same with Saudi Arabia, de facto aligned with jihadists in Syria and in Yemen. So, it's quite telling that all this information is coming out beforehand. Beforehand, they're saying, look out, because they're going to try to make it seem like the Syrian government is using chemical weapons. Why would they use chemical weapons when they know that that's the one thing that would draw in the West? That's the last thing they want us to draw in the West, but they're going to do the one thing that would draw in the West. Mighty convenient. So they're warning ahead of time. We think they're staging a chemical attack so that you draw in the West on their side. And unfortunately, Trump has not said, like, oh no, I'm not going to get involved there like he did on the campaign trail. He's on the brink of saying, yeah, let's go do it. And in fact, there's been talk between Russia and the US that's scary, because Russia's like, hey, listen, man, we're going to be involved in there. We're going to try to help them take back, Idlib from the jihadist stronghold. We're warning you, don't get involved. So Russia's telling the US, don't do it. And Trump, being Trump, just because somebody says he shouldn't do it, he might do it. So this is scary. Again, Syria is, a proxy war, if you will, between the US and Russia. And it can go bad in a number of ways. So, but this is what you get for social media censorship being welcomed with open arms. Yay, we got rid of Alex Jones! Oh shit, we also got rid of all dissenting voices that give an important alternative perspective. And if you don't think, hey, they're going to come for, left-wing outlets, go talk to Abby Martin. Now, to be fair to her, it was the Venezuela sanctions which led to Empire Files being shut down. But we already know that 75% of censorship on college campuses targets the left. I guarantee you that around that same percentage will target the left when it comes to YouTube, when it comes to Twitter. I mean, we already had the proper not list of, these are the outlets that spread fake news. Now, they had like WorldNet Daily and InfoWars and genuinely fake outlets on there, but they also included, Truth Out and Truth Dig and Alternet and Naked Capitalism and all outlets that are not necessarily doing fake news. So you asked for the censorship, now it's here, and it ain't pretty.
المجموعات الإرهابية المسلحة المندحرة تمكنا من الحصول في أحد بيوت قادة داعش التنظيم الإرهابي وهو قائد كتيبي على سلاح متوسط يشكى 12/7 ومع قاعدة مع ذخائر للسلاح مع بندقية آلية جهاز سرية للاتصال مع الأقمار الصناعية للاتصال مع المجموعات الإرهابية والدول الداعمة لها مع جهاز ووكسون والسي يؤرخ ملحمة خان العسل للمجموعات الإرهابية وكذلك غطاء للرأس عليه أحد دول الإرهابية للمجموعات الإرهابية من الدول الداعمة لها، بالإضافة إلى قاذف لها.
Mr. President, now we can make the summarize of some situation because the ISIS is almost defeated, Damascus is almost safe, and it's under control of governmental forces. And so far you have some operation in the south and on the east. Could you tell me now, as a president by career and as a doctor by education, what was it? How you could miss the first symptoms of this war, first symptoms of this invasion to your country, because you call it invasion. What was it?
Yeah. We have to differentiate between the internal symptoms and the external. The internal symptoms, we have problems like any other society in our region. We are part of this region. And we always discuss this problem. Maybe we were short of solving the problem that we could have solved before the war. Maybe not. This is subjective to every Syrian, could see it from his different point of view. While if you want to talk about the external factor, which is very important in creating this war, because no other country in this region has similar war, although you have the same societies, and you have worse problems like in the Gulf states, where you have no freedom at all, either to women or to people, to anything. So if that's the reason, for example, because that was the slogan at the very beginning, why didn't it start in those countries? So actually what happened, it wasn't internal, because the same problem has them for decades now, some of them for centuries. So actually this is where the external factor, that it wasn't clear, because we didn't see it, actually, because the plan hasn't been made in Syria. It was made in some Western country like US, France, and UK mainly. Some other satellite states like Turkey, Saudi Arabia, and Qatar, they were planning and they were sending money at the very beginning after they failed in creating, let's say, spontaneous revolution. This is where it started sending money, and this is where the problem started. That was clear for us from the very beginning, but maybe we couldn't control it.
But why didn't you see, for example, when I came to Eastern Ghouta a month ago, I've seen the tunnels everywhere, which were constructed by the engineers, by huge machine, by bulldozers. How you could miss it? Do you have explanation now how they managed to do these underground cities?
Yeah, of course they could have used the tools that they already have in that area, whether stolen from the government, from private companies and so on. And they had support coming from Jordan through the desert directly to Al-Ghouta, where the desert is empty, no one can control it or observe it, and we don't have, of course, the means like satellites and so on to see all this. At the same time, when they started digging under the cities, something you cannot see.
When I came to Eastern Ghouta, I met the people who could prove by themselves that they've seen how Al-Nusra showed the chemical weapon to their areas. I've seen all these chemical suits in rooms where were the headquarters of Al-Nusra, and so on. But West tells that you poison your own people with a chemical weapon. Why is that?
Yeah.
Why nobody is listening to the people, and why West is so insistent in that?
Because the chemical narrative is part of their main narrative against the government in Syria. But they use it only when their troops, their proxies, the terrorists, been defeated in Syria in certain areas. They use this story or this narrative in order to have a pretext to intervene directly, militarily, and to attack the Syrian army. That's what happened many times. And every time they use this story, it's only when their proxies, the terrorists, been defeated. It should be, I mean, logically, let alone the reality that we don't have any chemical weapons anyway. We gave
you
them
don't
up.
have at all?
We don't have, no. Since 2013, we don't have. But put this aside, even if you have it, you should be using those weapons at least if you are being defeated, not when you win the war. And actually every time we are winning, they use it. So this is again the logic. But this is used as pretext in order to support the terrorists in Syria.
Is there any way to prevent all these provocations? Because our Russian Ministry of Defense tells that one of these provocations is to be prepared in their resort, and they told it recently. How to stop this?
You cannot, because this is not as a result of our reality. This is the result of their imagination, of their media. This is something created in their own media, in their own countries, and then spread all over the world in the internet or in different media outlets. So you cannot prevent the provocation. The American only tell lies, and they attack right away. When you don't have international law to be respected, when you don't have effective United Nations institutions, you cannot talk about preventing provocations, because this is a jungle now, all over the world.
You are winning. You control the most part of the country already. But so many players are in Syria. So many parts, they have interest. Americans make negotiations with Turkey about Manbij. Israelis make negotiations somewhere. The Iranians make negotiations. Kurds, they have their own interest. How to solve it all? How to keep Syria united? Because nowadays it seems like Syria is teased apart. How to stop this? Because you told your main logo is like one Syria for one nation.
Yeah. If you want to talk about Syria being torn apart, this is about the let's say the geography, not about the society. The society is unified, so we don't have problem regarding this. So we can look at Syria as unified as long as the people are unified. Being torn apart, this is occupation. Different part of Syria being occupied by the terrorists with the support of the West, mainly the United States and their allies. So if we want to talk about the future of Syria, we don't take them into account. Talk about the political processes. This is going to be only Syrian political process. We don't take into account the interests of any other country regarding something which is internal. If you talk about the war, it's becoming now an international war, because that's how it started. Actually, it wasn't only about the government in Syria. The government in Syria is independent. We have good relations with Russia, with China and other countries. And the United States wanted to redraw the map of the world politically and maybe militarily. So Syria was one of the main battlefields to redraw this map, at least in the Middle East. That's why when you talk about those interests, this is a fight between these powers. The main power, United States and their allies, supporting the terrorists, and the goal is to have hegemony, and the other power is Russia with its allies. Their aim is to fight the terrorism and to restore the international law.
But why Syria was selected for this game?
For many different reasons. Syria is part of the group of countries that they are considered as independent. Syria, Iran, North Korea, and now Russia as an independent country. So the West doesn't accept any independent position. America doesn't accept any European independent position. And that's why you have problem in Russia with US, because you want it to be independent. And they don't accept you, even if you're a great power or not, you cannot be independent. This is one reason. And we are a small country. How can we say no and yes? We have to say only yes. This is one reason. Second, geopolitics of Syria, the historic role of the Syrian society, although it's very small, but this is fault line, social fault line between the different sexes and ethnicities. And when you control this area, you could have controlled the rest of the Middle East. That's why the struggle on Syria started during the Pharaohs. And the first treaty in the world was 12 centuries before Christ, was between the Pharaoh and Hittites, coming from north and south. They fought regarding on Syria, and they signed the first treaty in history. So the geopolitics of Syria is very important. So controlling Syria was a goal to the great powers since that time till this moment. So it doesn't matter whether Syria is big or small, or bigger or smaller. It's important.
What do you expect from Russia in this case? Because you have so many players whom you told should leave Syria. You told that Syrian nation one day will ask everybody to leave this ground.
Yeah.
What do you expect from Russia in this case? Because we are allies, we are friends.
Friendship is long-term issue between Syria and Russia for 6 decades. But we signed the treaty, the military treaty is for more than 4 decades. So we have 2 reasons. The first one, Syria and Russia have interest in fighting and defeating terrorism. In Syria and Russia, anywhere in the world. So this is the first expectation and goal. The second one is the long-term one. Russia is very important for the global balance that we've lost in the collapse of the Soviet Union. So having Russia being here militarily and politically in Syria and in the Middle East and in the rest of the world is very important for the balance. It's not only important for Russia itself and for the other great powers, it's very important for smaller countries like Syria to have this balance. So that's what we expect from Russia on both levels, fighting terrorism and having a global balance.
I've been to Eastern Ghouta and I've seen how strongly it's destroyed, how hardly it's destroyed. And as far as I know, you need $400 billion to restore the country. But West tells that they will not give a dime while you are in power. What can you do in this situation? Because you have to restore the whole country.
Yeah. Frankly, this is the best statement during the war, best Western statement during the war, that they won't be part of reconstruction in Syria. Because very simply, we won't allow them to be part of it. Whether they come with money, without money, whether they came with loan or with donation, with the grant, whatever. We don't need the West. The West is not honest at all. They don't give, they only take. First of all, we didn't build Syria through history by foreign money. We built it with our money, with our human resources. We still, in spite of the war, we still have the human resources to rebuild every sector in our country. We're not worried about that. Regarding the money, before the war, we didn't have any debt because we built our country with loans, some loans from our friends. So we don't have money. You can have loans from your friends. You can have money from Syrians living abroad, Syrians living inside, and the money of the government. So we're not worried about that. It may take a longer time, but we're not worried at all about rebuilding Syria. Don't forget that reconstruction after the war, when you talk about 400 billion less or more, this is approximate, is the whole economy. It's the whole market. It's the whole investment. So the Europeans talking about coming for reconstruction, they're not coming to help Syria. They're coming to get money. And many European companies now are making contacts with us to open the door for them to come and invest in Syria.
I mean in private, yeah.
In private, of course. But of course, with the support of their government. So they need this market. They are in a very dire situation economically since 2008, most of the European countries. They need many markets. Syria is one of them. And we're not going to allow them to be part of this market, very simply.
When we're talking about the restoration of the whole country, means the restoration of trust and friendship between people, because we consider it partly as a civil war when the brother shoots to the brother because of the different religious or any other views. In this case, you start with Constitutional Committee. Opposition made their list for Constitutional Committee. Will you run for the next president's time, or how to restore this political structure of your country?
First of all, we don't have civil war, because civil war should be based on sectarian lines, ethnical lines, religious lines and so on. We don't have it in Syria. You can go everywhere, especially in the areas under the control of the government, where you can see the full spectrum of the rich Syrian societies existed and people living together. Actually, and this is not exaggeration, this is fact, the war was a very important lesson. So this diverse society is becoming much more unified than before the war because we learned the lesson. While if you go to the areas under the control of the terrorists, they don't represent one color of this society. Actually, they only reflect their incubator and the people who doesn't have any other choice but to live in those areas. They don't have any other choice. So we don't have worry about the civil war. So it's not people shooting each other. These are mercenaries. These are terrorists. You have terrorists in your country, in Russia, and they are Russian, but they don't represent part of the society. They represent their own ideology. So the same situation in Syria. So regarding the unification of the people, we don't have problem with that. Regarding the presidency, it has two factors. The first one, my will, and my will would be based on the second factor, which is the will of the Syrian people. We still have 3 years time. That time, in 2021, will the Syrian people be ready to accept that person, that president, or not? If no, what do I get with the presidency? I cannot do anything. I cannot succeed. I cannot give my country anything. So the answer will be no. If yes, that time I'm going to think about it, but still early. We still have 3 years till that time.
But what about all these constitutional reforms which were asked by United Nations?
We made reform in 2012, and now we have the Sochi conference. They're going to discuss it. Any constitutional reform is not related to the president, it's not related to the government, it's related to the Syrian people. So there must be, if we're going to go in any kind of amendment or change or whatever, it's going to be through referendum, national referendum. If there's national referendum and the people will support new constitutions, of course we're going to do it. But this is not related to the will of the United Nations or to the foreign countries. It's not. This is going to be fully Syrian. If the Syrian doesn't want any change, there will be no change whatsoever.
One of the main players is United States, and Trump made his meeting in Singapore with Kim. Recently, Iran told that we will never meet with Trump because Kim is not Muslim, he doesn't understand what's going on, we'll never talk to Trump ever. Will you, if it will be necessary, meet Trump directly or indirectly? Do you think that it's necessary for you to talk to Trump?
We believe that discussing or talking or negotiating with your adversary, and any other one of course, is productive. But in this case, it's always, since we had the first negotiations with the United States in 1974, we never achieved anything in any subject. The problem with the American president that they are hostages to their lobbies, to the mainstream media, to the huge corporations, financial, oil, armaments, etc. So they can tell you whatever you want to hear, but they will do the opposite. And this is the case, and it's getting worse and worse, and Trump is a very stark example. So talking and discussing with the American now for no reason, without achieving anything, it's just a waste of time. We're not happy to talk with the Americans just because they are American. We are ready to discuss with anyone who could be productive, and we don't believe that the American politics will be different in the foreseeable future. So it's just, again, waste of time now.
Every time I'm thinking about Syria, I remember that you are a doctor by career, that you lived in London for a long time, you've been integrated to that society, and now that society considers you as like a symbol of evil on the earth. And everyone tells there, like in the newspapers and politicians, that you poison people with a chemical weapon, you do all this awful stuff to your own citizens. How you feel about this? Or does it make any pressure for you emotionally, and to you and to your family? How you explain them what's going on?
Actually, emotionally, we live with the disaster in Syria for 7 years. So when you have bigger disaster, you won't feel smaller pressure. You don't. I mean, every blood that is being let on daily basis from a single Syrian person will create much, much more emotion than their fake narrative. This first. Second, when you know that they are lying, you don't feel anything emotional. You could feel something when there's credible criticizing based on facts and convincing stories, let's say. This is where you can, where we can feel, let's say, some pain or emotional pressure and so on. The problem with the way that they don't have statesmen anymore. The substitute of statesmen and real politics is fake politics, and fake politics needs fake stories, and chemical stories is part of these fake stories. Actually, the Western politics, and I'm not talking about the people, only the politicians, they have no morals at all, they have no values at all. So when you deal with people without value, without morals, they don't incite anything in your heart or in your brain or in your mind.
And the last question probably is that every time we come to Western Ghouta, we see the signs left by ISIS or al-Nusra, we will return. For us, it's scary because we spent a lot of money, we lost a lot of lives supporting Syria or in her struggle with caliphate. So for us, it's scary that one day it can return. What's your estimation?
First of all, this is ideology. This is dark ideology, was promoted for the last nearly five decades, because it started in the late 60s It's not only in the 90s or after. Around the world, mainly by the Saudi Wahhabis. And of course, with the support of the United States and the West in general. So this is religious danger with political support. So it's both. So it's not something spontaneous. They will return, of course, because they're going to be used again and again by the Western power, but maybe under different brands. Those power was in Afghanistan 30 years ago, and Reagan called them holy fighters. He didn't call them terrorists. Now they are called terrorists, but they are using those terrorists. Maybe 10 years later, they're going to be used somewhere in this world under different brand. The same product, but they are rebranding this product. So it's a Western tool. That's why asking about feeling this tension is correct. This first. Second, you are right to feel this worry even in Russia, not because you lost life in Syria, because you have the same terrorism in Russia. How I look at it, if those terrorists succeeded in Russia, I will be in danger. They're going to come to Syria and to other countries, and vice versa. So you've been defending the Syrian, but you've been defending the Russians. So you paid the price in Syria in defending the Syrian, but you are defending the Russians as well. Because terrorism has no political borders. For them, it's one battlefield from Russia to Syria, maybe to Indonesia, and maybe to Morocco on the Atlantic oceans.
How you can stop the occupation in northern Syria because of this agreement between America and Turkey, one which is Syrian soil?
Yeah. We adopted two ways. The first one, and the main one, was the reconciliation. It succeeded. This is how we could have brought those areas back to their normality, where the people live in normal life, and the government is controlling the life of the people through the institutions. The other one is attacking the terrorists. Whenever they don't give up and join the reconciliation, we're going to attack them and take control by force, which is not our favorable way, but is the only way to gain control of the country.
But they separated the parts. They divided it between themselves. I mean, Americans and Turkey, they consider it like the territory which controls the...
No, don't believe. America control everything. Control Turkey, and America sent Turkey, and America prevented Turkey 5 years ago when Erdogan wanted to invade Syria 5 years ago, and they told him no. Why? Because at that time the terrorists were succeeding, were expanding. So why do we need Erdogan? When terrorists started retreating, they told Erdogan, now we can interfere because it's getting better for the Syrian, for the Russian, and for this group and Iran and the group who are fighting terrorists. So you'd better interfere just to make it messy again. And that's what's happening. But all these areas are under the control of the United States, nobody else.
That's why they make such a strong pressure on Iran, you mean?
Exactly, for different reasons, but at the end, they control ISIS in the east, and they supported ISIS in the east. They supported al-Nusra in Idlib in northwest, and they supported al-Nusra and ISIS and other factions in the south, the Americans. But they assign different roles to different countries. Sometimes they ask the Turks, sometimes they ask the Saudis, sometimes the Qatari, and so on. But all those countries, including the French and the British, all of them are American puppets and satellites, to be very simple and clear.
Thank you so much.
Thank you for you.